Howdy, howdy, and welcome back. We are on yet another Workshop Wednesday. This time it's a strategy session because we happen to have 5 Wednesdays. We had an extra Wednesday this month in the month of June, so we get to do an extra strategy session. And we're going to talk today about how to guarantee that you are using the right tool at the right time. Before we go too far into this, welcome. If this is your first Workshop Wednesday, my name is Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You should as well. I'm the co-founder of measurementmarketing.io. And whether you found us through podcasts and talks that we're giving, or maybe through some of the products that we share some of our content with, like CXL Institute, Digital Marketer, System Examiner, or Measure Summit, or maybe you're already an existing member over at measurementmarketing.io. However you found us, we are happy that you're here. It's our job to help people just like you learn how to use all these crazy cool tools that are out there in the world of measurement. And we do that using the measurement marketing framework. Now, the framework is taught with our flagship product. We call this the Measurement Marketing Academy. And it kind of walks you through this process of planning out your measurement, building out your measurement, and then acting upon that which you have measured, right? The actual numbers, what to do with them all. So the way we talk about it is we'll kind of think most marketers are marketing in the blind. Maybe you're in this position already, and you're trying to get to the point where your marketing is predictable, right? It's predictably growing results, it's growing revenues, it's growing profits. So the way to do that is first you plan, you think about what questions are important to answer, what information will you need to collect in order to get those answers, and most importantly, what actions will you take based upon the answers you get. At that point, then you move into building out your measurement once you've got your plan, your measurement plan in place. In the build, we talk about who, what, and why. Like, where's the traffic coming from? Who's sending it to us? What type of traffic is it? Why are they sending us that traffic? Then we set up results and make sure that our measurement platform is measuring for certain results, specifically so we know what our results are and how we're getting our results. And then we structure it. We structure it in a way that ties a story together between which traffic sources are causing which results. And then once you have all of that done and your implementation is built out, now you can actually start using your numbers. And of course, that starts with reading the story, right? Reading the reports. Those will give you your benchmarks as to what's working and what's not. Knowing how things are currently working, you then start to forecast how things should be working in the near future. And then you measure against those forecasts. That's what will tell you very clearly where you're hitting the mark and where you're not. So you know what focus to actually optimize on, what step should you focus and start optimizing, maybe doing split tests or other optimization steps at that point. And that's what brings you to this point where all of a sudden marketing becomes really, really predictable. It absolutely should be. It shouldn't be a guessing game. There should be very, very little drama when it comes to marketing. And it doesn't have to be there. If you measure things properly, it just becomes a very systemized thing, just like this. That is the measurement marketing framework. Now, with all of our trainings, when we talk about these workshops, we're going to go into a few different ideas. This is a strategy session, so it's not really made for people that are implementing. It's made for the people who need to think about this stuff, right? Like what questions are important, what tools are important to use, and maybe that's where you currently are. So in this workshop, just think about one new thing, maybe one new concept, one new phrase that maybe you heard or something you heard just taught a slightly different way that you can put into action in your own organizations, whether it's you by yourself or you working for as part of a larger team or with your clients, perhaps. Just one new thing you put into practice, then come back, rewatch this workshop because you'll pick up another new one thing. And when you got your one thing, like that's it. You just practice that. Don't try to hang on to everything because that's how we get overwhelmed. And there's so much complication when it comes in the world of measurement marketing that it's easy to get overwhelmed. So just focus on the one new thing, one new idea. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Strategy session, how to guarantee you are using the right tool at the right time. Now, normally, of course, we would dive into a platform like Analytics or Tag Manager, but this is not one of those kind of trainings. This is a strategy session. So we're really going to bring out Lucidchart again, our favorite teaching tool here, and we're going to talk about how to think through the right tool at the right time. And we're going to do this in 2 levels. One is just generally speaking, any tool that we use in the world of marketing, whether it's a measurement tool, whether it's a builder tool of some site for our websites or some little widget that now helps us do this thing or that thing or whatever the thing is, right? So we'll talk about sort of the general overview, how to think about tools in general. Then we're going to relate it specifically to measurement tools. And that'll help you answer questions like, well, should I be using Tag Manager now? Should I be using server-side Tag Manager now? Should I not be using Tag Manager now, right? So all of that stuff we'll talk about as well in this workshop. So first, let's talk about the general things. Like, is this the right tool at the right time? This is how I have found a very successful formula. I try to keep things as simple as possible. I understand there's nuances to everything, but to keep it as simple as possible, I like thinking about 3 core components of the tool. First, flexibility. How flexible is the tool? Then control, and by that I mean who's got the control over the tool and how much control do I have in particular. And then there's the risk, which is if I do invest resources, time, and energy into this, what's the risk, right? I'm trying to mitigate the risk if I use the tool and it goes the wrong way, right? So that's sort of how we generally think about it. So I'm gonna give you a few key questions to ask and make sure that you're asking yourself and asking your teams as you go through here. So first is under flexibility. Ask yourself this question: how flexible is this tool today? And ask yourself, almost a more important question, is how flexible could it be tomorrow? Okay, so how flexible is it today? How flexible could this tool be tomorrow? Now, the reason that we're doing that, the reason that we're asking about flexibility, and we'll bring up some examples here in just a moment so we can kind of run through some stuff, is because flexibility, especially in today's world, if a tool is built where it does one thing maybe really well, but it can't really grow. Like maybe it's super flexible for today's world, but it's not flexible for tomorrow's world. And I'll give you an example just in terms of analytics in general. Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, the old school analytics, right? The one that we're probably still using right now. So Universal Analytics is flexible for today. It's flexible for today's world. It was definitely more flexible than what classic analytics was, but it's not flexible for the world of tomorrow. It has a shelf life. It's going to eventually not be as useful as it is today. We're not going to be able to answer as many questions for it because the world is changing. So enter GA4, right? Google Analytics 4. That is a platform that is both flexible today and flexible tomorrow, right? So that's just a kind of an idea of flexibility. And again, we'll talk about some other general tools outside of measurement in just a moment here as we go through this. But I very much spend a ton of time looking at these two questions. How flexible is it today? How much can I do with it right now? How much could I do with it in the future? The other thing when you think about the future is you think about how open is that tool. So am I relying, I should say, on the tool owner or the platform owner to evolve the tool? Or am I relying on the fact that others can evolve the tool? As an example, WordPress as a platform, it's very flexible today, right? And it's very flexible tomorrow. How do I know it's flexible tomorrow? Because they have things like plugins, because they have things like themes, because of how open that platform is and how accessible it is to a worldwide tens of thousands of developers who are out there helping that platform be better than they ever could be if WordPress.org, the company that owns WordPress, if WordPress.org was the only people responsible for evolving that platform, it would not be as flexible as it is. And it's because of it, it's so open. So I look at that. I look at integrations that are available. I look at how many people are developing for it. I look at, do they have a native development platform, hooked into it? Things like that. That's what I'm looking for when I think about flexibility. Now let's talk about control for a little bit, because that is one of my favorite topics. I think I'm a control freak, which is why measurement's right up my alley. So how much do we control is really what I care about here. Now, in control, I mean, how much control do I have over the platform itself to do the things that the platform needs to get done? Again, let's think about WordPress as an example. So I have complete control over WordPress for the most part. I mean, yes, there's a kind of a overall structure to a WordPress site, but really we've got so much control as to what it can actually show, how it can show it, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of control, and I have control over the data in that platform. So with WordPress, everything's stored in databases. I could pull everything out hypothetically, and that platform is so huge that if I was pulling out all of my data, let's say a bunch of posts and things like that, more than likely, whatever I was importing it into would be able to import from a platform like WordPress anyway, because WordPress is so huge. So it's easy to move things around. I've got control over both what I can do with that platform and what I can do with the data that's in that platform. Now, how much I can move that data around. Now, this relates to flexibility, right? Because I need to make sure it's flexible enough, and while it's especially the thing about data and that sort of thing, while that relates to being flexible, right? Being able to move data from one platform to another, it is, and it's definitely flexibility. It's control. How can I do that? I have direct control over that. I have it hosted on my server, right? I have control over everything. This is important because how many platforms have you subscribed to that one day they're like, congratulations, we want to let you know we got bought out by some other company you've never heard of, or worse, it was an acqui-hire organization, and now that tool that you loved is now been acqui-hired by some other larger company who is sunsetting the tool. And they're like, hey, good luck. There's a spreadsheet you can get with a bunch of stuff that you won't be able to do anything with, and it's like, that happens a lot. So you think about this sort of stuff, right? You think about the flexibility, think about how much control you have over that tool. And these are for sure conversations you should be having with everybody on your team when somebody says, hey, we want to go ahead and do this thing, right? Because this is the new cool hotness when it comes to whatever the tool is. You should absolutely make sure you go through flexibility and control conversations. Now, when it comes to control, the other question around control is under resources, right? Do we have the necessary resources to invest in this, right? Do we have the necessary resources to invest in this? Now, this is time, this is effort, and this is money, right? These are the resources when you're thinking about it. So do we have the time? Do we have the effort? Do we have the money that's necessary for this? And of course, that depends upon the platform itself. Something like WordPress, pretty cheap to get started. Depending upon how much flexibility I want in that platform, I might use a theme, which gives me the level of flexibility that I want. Then if I want to get even more flexible, maybe I hire a full-time developer who then manages that. So yes, my resources go up, but again, I'm accessing more flexibility. So it makes sense for us, right? Et cetera. So that's how we think about flexibility and control. Flexibility, is it flexible for today? And how flexible will it be tomorrow? Possibly could it be tomorrow? And really we're looking at how open is that platform to third-party integrations and development. And then control. How much control do we currently have over it? Not just using the platform itself, but also the data within the platform. And then do we have the necessary resources to actually invest time, effort, and energy in terms of monetary resources into this platform to access this flexibility, right? To get access to it. Finally, it's the risk question. Now, this one, it's pretty basic, but it has to be asked. What's the downside? Right? And really, it's two things. It's downside first, and then upside second. Right. So I don't really like focusing on the positive all that much. That's not because I'm a negative guy. It's because I like making sure that I'm mitigating risk. Right. And I'm as entrepreneurs, especially, I'm definitely on the entrepreneur land of things. We're already super optimized. We're already focused. We're optimized for this optimal view of the universe, for being very optimistic. Right. Because we're always like, we can make it happen. It's fine. So as an entrepreneur, especially if that's you watching this, or if you're in that sort of role, you got to think downside first. You got to train yourself to do that. So what's the downside if we invest these resources and it turns out we don't have as much control, or it turns out it's not as flexible, or it turns out it's just the wrong fit, right? How easy is it to get out of? How easy is it to stop? Or is it like, man, you are sucked into this? Right? So for example, a platform like maybe Infusionsoft, like a CRM system, like ActiveCampaign or Infusionsoft. Well, Infusionsoft for us, very flexible. It's flexible today. It's going to be more flexible tomorrow because they add a lot of resources. There are some integrations, but it's not as open as I would like, but there is an API. So there are some integrations that are out there. So there is some flexibility. And I have seen some of those integrations be pulled into the main platform over the years. So it's okay. It's flexible today, probably going to continue to be flexible tomorrow. We control an awful lot in the Infusionsoft database. We're able to, export things if we needed to move on to another system or service. However, the campaigns, to be able to, pull out all these automations, email automations and all that stuff, it's a little harder to pull that stuff out. So while we can put it in there, we don't necessarily control being able to pull that out super easily. That's possible, but not super easy. And then do we have the necessary resources, right? In terms of time, effort, and money, because it takes obviously the money part, but it takes time and effort, resources from our team to be able to invest in Infusionsoft and build everything out. So if we did do all of that, let's pretend we were investigating Infusionsoft as a tool. If we did do all of that, what's the downside? Well, the downside is we build this thing out because we are committing to it. And then we decide, it's not going to work out that well. Well, now we got to rip everything out, rip all these email automations out, rip out all these cart systems, rip out the affiliate program that's in there and find replacements for it. It's a massive downside. So if we make this decision, the reason we come to this downside decision is if we go into it knowing we are going through the tunnel, right? It's something we talk about here where you don't try it out. We are committing to it and we're going to make this thing work, which is why we do so much research ahead of time, right? In terms of asking about flexibility and control. And of course, the upside is just the exact opposite. It's the one that you naturally want to go toward anyway, which is like, when it works out really well, it's going to be able to allow us to do this, that, and that, right? So that's, I think, is kind of a natural one. So that's why I didn't really mention it too much. That's there. But of course, you can think about the upside. Assuming everything does work, it's going to give you the ability to, do whatever the thing is the platform is supposed to be able to allow you to do. So let's talk about very quickly, and we're going to move into some measurement specific stuff when it comes to this. So when we think about a platform like, let's say Shopify. Okay. So if I'm looking at Shopify, bring up little Shopify icons. There we go. Okay, so we got Shopify, and we're trying to figure out, is Shopify a tool that we should be doing because we have an e-commerce store right now? So again, this is not an answer, right? This is not me telling you, oh, you should do Shopify, you should not do Shopify. This is me saying you should go through a framework that fits your unique situation so you can answer if Shopify is a good platform for us, or for you in this case. So Shopify, the first thing is, how flexible is it today? It's pretty flexible. They have liquid theme. You can adjust some things on the cart, but there is a superstructure to it that you don't have access to. How flexible could it be tomorrow? Well, they have apps, right? So there's always people that creating new apps and new add-ons and things like that. There's companies that do themes. Shopify is a really supported platform that is expanding partnerships every day. I think now they're doing Google Shopping connections and stuff. So it's pretty flexible, right? That's pretty good for Shopify. How about under the control issue? How much do we control? You control quite a bit. There is definitely some lack of control though. So you control quite a bit in terms of the look and feel to some extent. And then you also lose a little control based upon the level of plan that you're on. If you're on their kind of lower levels, you don't have as much control over the cart system. If you're on the higher levels, you do have a little bit more of a chance to control the cart system, but only up to a certain point. The checkout process is kind of going to be how the checkout process is with a Shopify store. The URLs are going to be like the URL structure is with a Shopify store. Like there is some fixed things when it comes to that. And then do we have the necessary resources? Are we as a company able to afford it if we needed to do the higher plan? Do we have the resources to maybe bring on a developer to customize a theme if that's what we need? Or is it just hiring somebody to load up the product catalog and connect it to the fulfillment warehouse and get up and running, right? So you would go through those. And then what's the downside, right? What's the downside? We build an entire store on Shopify and then have to export it to some other platform because Shopify either went away, got bought, or we outgrew it for some reason, right? Something along that line. It's probably not that big of a deal to do that, because Shopify is pretty database driven anyway, so it's probably okay. We control most of the data back there, so that's fine. We can export customers and all of that stuff into some other platform if we needed to. And of course, what's the upside? It's maybe a faster way to get started than building a site from scratch, right? This compared to something like maybe WooCommerce, which might be the other platform that you might look at. So when you're thinking about a software platform, let's say Woo. I was going to do Woo because I think everything's Woo at this point. So WooCommerce, right, might be a little more flexible, both today and tomorrow. We control more of it. You can control a lot more of it because it's WordPress based. Do you have the necessary resources though? Because in order to do that, in order to access this level of flexibility, might take a little more resources to get it the way that you want it. So it could take some time. And of course, what's the downside? Probably not that much. It's a pretty big platform, just like Shopify, easy to export things around. What's the upside? Of course, if it works really, really well, and you control everything on your servers and your hosting and everything else, right? So a little more control that would come through there. Again, there's not a right answer. It's for your own situation, especially under this resources question, so that you have that. Okay, now let's talk about measurement tools. And we're going to use this same sort of system, only now we're going to bring out measurement tools and say, okay, so this is something specific to measurement tools. So as we come through here, let's talk about specific to measurement tools themselves. And this is something we've introduced before in some of our workshops, but you need to think about measurement tools in terms of 3 steps. So in your measurement, you are collecting information, you are storing information, you are reporting the information. And this is really where you interact with it, is on this reporting stage, right? So first we're going to collect it, then we're going to store it in some sort of database somewhere, then we're going to build reports on it, and that's where you typically would see it as an end user. So the collection phase, the storing phase, the reporting phase, what does that? Well, a tool like Google Analytics does that just fine, right? A tool like Google Analytics absolutely does that. So if we come over here and say, well, we're using Google Analytics right now, and I'm gonna pop this in here like this. So we say, how flexible is it? How could it be? How much control do we have? Do we have the necessary resources, right? Take advantage of it. Those sort of questions have gone through. We think about collecting, storing, and reporting, and here's Google Analytics. It does all 3. It collects the information, it stores the information in its database, it reports on that information. But what about Tag Manager, right? What about something like Tag Manager? Maybe you're in the position where you're just using Google Analytics right now, and you're not using Tag Manager, and you're wondering, well, should I even use Tag Manager right now? Well, personally, believe me, I love Tag Manager. I use Tag Manager with Google Analytics. I definitely recommend it, generically speaking. Eventually, I say yes, you probably will be using Google Tag Manager. However, should you use it now? How do you know when to start using Tag Manager in your organization? So the way you go about it is you think through these sort of questions, right? The flexibility questions, the control questions, and do we have the resources questions, right? Mostly these. The downside and stuff is Not too big of a deal when it comes to measurement, but flexibility and the control stuff for sure. And then you think about it in each particular step. What does Tag Manager give you? Tag Manager gives you the ability to do a better job at collecting more specific details, right? More specific behaviors. So instead of just page views, which Google Analytics may do on its own, even basic clicks or basic scroll, which the new GA4, Google Analytics 4 platform will do on its own, you don't get things like video interaction. You don't get things like, or true video interaction or true scroll rate. You can't tell when somebody scrolled 10, 25, 50, 75, and 90% of the way down the page. In order to do that sort of level of detail, you need a platform like Tag Manager. That's what it helps you to do. So if you're asking questions and you're trying to collect certain information to answer those questions, but you cannot collect the behaviors because your tool, let's say you're using analytics in the beginning, your tool isn't able to collect, well, guess what? You upgrade. You grow beyond your tool. You grow beyond what analytics can do on its own, specifically when it comes to collection. Therefore, you insert Tag Manager. Now Tag Manager will send to Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics no longer collects. Tag Manager is doing that. So, and that's how you would think about it. It's cool. Tag Manager now collects. Google Analytics maybe stores and builds reports. And maybe that's working just fine for you for a while until you get to a point where you're like, listen, I love my Google Analytics reports, but I hate my Google Analytics reports because they look kind of geeky and I don't know what anything means. So maybe you want to do a better job of not being so overwhelmed with reports, and you want your team or somebody to provide you reports that are going to be more useful, that lead to more actions quicker, that don't require analysis. And honestly, that's what Google Data Studio does a really good job of. It is built to report, right? As a platform, it doesn't store anything. It doesn't collect anything. It just reports. It builds really incredible dashboards. So at a certain point, again, you might outgrow, right? You're growing beyond what analytics can do for you as a reporting tool. So instead you find another tool that specializes in reporting, in this case, Google Data Studio. So now you've got your system. And this is really how these tools work together. Is you've got Tag Manager on one side doing the collection. You got analytics that really is there to store. And then analytics is a data source for Data Studio, and that's actually what builds your reports. This is how you move into these tools. Now, if you don't have a reporting problem, you don't need a Data Studio thing right now. If you don't have a collection issue where you can't measure for certain behaviors, you're having problems measuring for certain behaviors, then don't worry about Tag Manager right now. Eventually, you absolutely will, I promise you, because as you get better and better at measurement, you're going to start asking bigger and bigger questions, and you're going to need all three of them. For sure, no matter what, eventually you will need all three of these tools. But as in terms of when you need those is really based upon this whole collect, store, and report model, the CSR model, as you're going through. So always think about it in terms of the thing you're trying to do when it comes specific to measurement tools. Now, let's bring in some other types of tools. Let's say, for example, a third-party push-button simple tools, right? There's lots of them out there that are out there, and we get asked about it all the time. Oh, should I be using this or that, or instead of analytics, should I be using this, that, or the other thing? Well, let's go back to the flexibility and how much we control stuff. Okay, flexibility and control is super important. It's now more than ever when it comes to your data. Now more than ever. So if you think about a push-button simple tool that comes along that's going to be some competitor to analytics and solve all of your measurement problems, which all of them promise, in some way, shape, or form, you go through this collect, store, and report, and you think through it. Okay, will this tool, right? And we're not saying no here. I'm just saying this is how you think about it. So I'm just going to say some, magic builder tool. We'll call it magic measurement. So if there's some cool magic measurement tool that's out there, right? And I know there's some neat ones that are out there. So let's say there's this magic measurement tool that's out there. When it comes to collection, can it collect all the information you want it to collect? Can it store all that information? And can it report that information? Then you also make sure you go through flexible stuff. How flexible is that tool today? That little magic measurement tool that you're looking at, how flexible could it be tomorrow? Does it have any open-ended APIs or anything that people can help evolve the tool? Because the more people that are developing for the tool, the more likely the tool is able to survive in the marketplace, right? That's what we're looking for. And in the world of tech, we all know look at AppSumo, love AppSumo, but man, every day there's a new thing that's been released, and every day there's another company that used to be an AppSumo thing that got bought out or is closed. So this is just the world of tech, right? Nothing against it. That's the world of tech. So you got to make sure that things are very, very flexible, especially if you're putting in your measurement time, effort, energy, because it is hard to build an implementation system for measurement and then try to move it someplace else, right? So think about flexibility, and then think about how much you control. So how much in the magic measurement tool that you're thinking about, how much do you control? And by that, it's not just the data, because maybe we offer data exports and things like that, but it's how the numbers are getting there in the first place. If you build your own measurement implementation using Google's suite of products, let's say, right? Clearly we're biased because we teach these tools, right? So definitely just full disclosure there. But these tools are free. They are supported by one of the largest companies in the planet, right? Known to man. There's lots of resources that are available for these, and there's lots of integrations for all of them. So huge development communities that are helping to evolve these tools with people so much smarter than I will ever be when it comes to these tools. So I get to live off the benefits of those fine people that are helping to constantly make these things go forward. Tag Manager's got its templates. Google Analytics has its API. Google Data Studio has its community visualizations, right? Like there's all sorts of cool things that are available for all these platforms. And then you've got Magic Measurement tool that comes out and says, oh, we'll do the job of all of these so much better than they can. So I'm always a little skeptical of that. But again, it might be that they can do the job, maybe not at the level these tools can do it. And this is what I think a lot of people are starting is when you're first starting off in measurement, you just need to get something. And I'm a fan of this. Like you got to get good enough to get going. Eventually, yes, I think you're going to end up being here. You'll be in a Tag Manager, Analytics, Data Studio kind of format. You'll have all three working together. It'll be humming along. You're going to be putting the numbers in the reports, and you're going to know exactly what to do with those numbers because your system is the one that put them there, right? Everything's going to make sense to you. You're going to know your numbers. You're going to trust your numbers. You're going to be able to grow your numbers because of that, because the level of control and experience that you have with your implementation. But magic measurement tools, typically, they might collect some stuff. They might be able to store some stuff. They might have some nice little reports, but it's a little more black box, meaning they're not telling you how they did everything. They're not giving you a whole lot of control over how stuff gets in there. They're just going to take care of it for you because remember, they're magic, these little magic measurement things, right? So how much do you control and do you have the resources? Maybe they don't require a lot of resources, maybe a little money, not much. And you can turn them on quickly and you can start getting answers to something quickly. Fine. Then start with magic measurement, right? It's whatever the platform is, start with it. If it's easy for you, it could be a WordPress plugin, could be some sort of measurement platform that's out there. Start with that if it helps you get up and running. I think that's huge because you got to get a start. And these tools, let's face it, even if you started with just analytics first, analytics is a little overwhelming at first. There's a lot, and there's a whole other analytics platform called Google Analytics 4 that's equally as overwhelming. So I get that there's a learning curve to it. So magic measurement sometimes is the answer, where you start with magic measurement with the idea that eventually you're probably going to outgrow this. You're probably going to get to a point where some of the numbers don't make sense and you really don't know how the numbers are getting there. So you're going to start questioning the tool. This is just sort of what I've seen happen with most users of most tools. Sometimes, again, it's user error that happens, right? Where you're not using the tool properly, but you don't realize it because you just don't have access to as much of the inner workings of the tools maybe you would want. Then you start moving into something like Google Analytics, where you can push the information into the platform. You can use other tools to push information into the platform. And all of a sudden, you've built, because you can follow just the whole concept of the measurement marketing framework we mentioned on most of our workshops, you're the one putting the numbers in there. You're the one in control of these incredibly diverse, flexible platforms that will be around for decades in some way, shape, or form coming through here. So, this is sort of where I think it starts. It starts with, like, you might start with a little tool and eventually you're going to outgrow the tool. I am not a fan of, let's just take on a tool for a new tool's sake. I'm not a fan of, let's just switch the cart because we think it's a cool tool. There's got to be a reason because there's a lot of resources that are required to switch carts or to switch measurement systems. So I'm a believer that you should be outgrowing what it is that you're trying to answer. So whatever your questions are, okay? So at a certain point, you're able to answer your questions. If the questions that you're asking are easily answered by your current system, even if it's a little magic measurement tool, awesome, do that. However, if those questions start to outgrow what's possible, right, that's when you need to start saying, okay, well, we got to start using other platforms to do that because our questions are bigger and we need something that can answer bigger questions, more quality questions, and we need a different system for that. So that's why you might switch to the Google suite of things. And I have not, for the most part, seen anybody who is really doing a great job of using Google, where they understand what analytics can do and Tag Manager can do in Data Studio. When you really start getting good at these platforms, it's hard to outgrow them
I'm sure it's possible, but eventually what you do is you start adding things like BigQuery databases, and you start controlling more of that at a very, very high level, right? At a certain point, you could have data lakes and data warehouses and all that stuff happens. But it's still within the Google suite of products. It's just a natural evolution of where it goes. So you outgrow the different tools of the storage into use this more for analysis, and then again, maybe like BigQuery, something like that. But it's made to be flexible. It's made so that all this stuff still works together, and you're not having to rip everything out and start over again. You're just evolving your measurement platform. Whereas here, maybe you lose a bunch of data because you can't port it into Google Analytics, right? Because the data is locked in some sort of magic measurement system that they did that was proprietary to them, right? Which again is lack of control, which is why I don't like those. So anyway, so that hopefully gives you at least a little bit of a framework to how to think about right tool at the right time, because it is a popular question that we get asked pretty consistently. So when you think about your one thing from this, was it that CSR model, collect, store, and report when it comes to thinking about what measurement tools should do what? Was it this concept of flexibility, control, and risk, right? When you think about just tools in general that you might come across as a marketer or as a strategist in your own organization, or maybe just that concept of growing beyond the tool, right? That the fact is you've got to force yourself to grow beyond the tool. So, and sometimes, and I'm gonna bring this back just very, very briefly here. Sometimes you are limited by tech. So magic measurement at a certain point, when we talked about those questions, right? That idea of questions, if your questions are small enough and you can get all the answers you need from that tool, then awesome, stay within the tool. But at that moment where the questions start to get a little bigger than what your tech can answer, you are going to be sometimes limited by your tech and you're not able to get the answers anymore. So you got to upgrade your tech at that point. Right. And that, again, doesn't happen typically from a measurement standpoint with something like Tag Manager very often or Google Analytics, because they're kind of made for this stuff. But it can happen. And if we go up to the top where we talked about this sort of stuff, we think about just general tools, right? General tools, things like WordPress or Shopify or whatever. Again, sometimes you're limited by your tech. I know a lot of chat plugins get installed into sites, and HubSpot all of a sudden starts putting iframes in for forms because it looks really cool to the user, which is awesome, but it's a problem to measure sometimes because they're iframes and you don't have as much visibility that you might like in certain aspects, and you get limited by your tech. And so you want to make sure your tech is open and flexible and able to be measured, right? So as you go through. So, all right, with that, I will go ahead and wrap this one up officially. Hope you got at least more than one new thing, but at least one new thing. Next week's workshop, it is the first workshop of July 2021, in which case we go back and we look at the month of June and we say, okay, what did Google release in June? Primarily Google stuff. And we'll talk about all the different features and updates that came through in June 2021 with platforms like Tag Manager, Analytics, Data Studio, etc. So if that's something of interest, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. We are just right near 2,000 subscribers. So thank you all for helping us get to that level. That was huge. And, thank you for your comments and everything else. It's been awesome to see those. So I appreciate that. And of course, just make sure you subscribe and get notified if you want to see next week's workshop. You can also become a Measurement Marketing Toolbox member. This is a free membership that includes these workshops and also includes a ton of resources that you can use as a measurement marketer to help learn some stuff, right? Practice some things like the traffic tracking toolkit. It's one of our most popular ones back there. So you can go there and grab that completely free. Just our way of giving back to the community. Measure.tip/WW will take you there. Just put a name and an email and it'll set up your membership level and you'll have access to the free section of the site. Now, there is, I mentioned earlier, the Measurement Marketing Academy. You, of course, can also become a Measurement Marketing Academy member if it makes sense for you. We built the Academy to help you get through this stuff, to go through the plan, build, and act steps, and to go through the 3 keys in each one of those steps, to learn what questions are important, to learn how to collect the information, what information you can even collect, right, in terms of the behaviors that are happening on the site, to learn what actions you could take based upon the answers you get. Then we talk about the who, what, and why of traffic, identifying results, and then figuring out the structure to tell the story so that your data is finally not just a bunch of meaningless information, but it looks like a story, because you can do that with platforms like Google Analytics. Then, of course, it's just reading the story, forecasting what the near truth is, or the near future is going to look like based upon the recent past, and then you optimize. You measure against your actual, your forecast, actual results against forecasts, and that'll tell you what's working and what's not, so you know what to fix and what steps to take. So that is why we did that. Now, a very quick tour of the Academy for those who have not seen it before. It's a popular request I get. This is what it looks like. You'd access these 6 blocks right in here when you come in. So the first block is the win courses. So they are organized by date because some members will come in here and just want to get caught up on the latest ones that come through. Typically every 4 to 6 weeks, we do a new course. We've been pretty much doing it every 4 weeks, I think, for the last couple of years, but you can see all of them organized by date. We do update courses. So you can see this was a new course that came out with GTM server side. We just recently released in June. This was an update. This was an update for 2021. So typically we try to keep them, it's either a new update or a new course that's coming out. And then they're also organized by topic. So if you want to learn about analytics, tag manager, dashboards and reporting, maybe even strategy, which is kind of my favorite stuff. I think this is where the secret sauce really is learning what to do with the numbers once you got them. So there's lots of strategy stuff back here as well. So you got those are just the courses themselves. That's just this one block. The other block is the on-demand workshops that you have access to. So those are this workshop. So you can see this is also the one you would get for free as a Toolbox member. So you would see that. And then down here as an Academy member, all of these are unlocked. These are the past workshops that have all been edited down. They are student editions. They don't have any of this stuff in there. And they are a little more easy to get through and a lot shorter. So the reason that we did that is because this becomes a searchable database for you as an Academy member, where you can come in and say, okay, I want to look for how to set a goal or whatever the thing is. And then it'll go through, the system goes through all available courses, all available workshops that shows you, hey, here's all the different things that relate to goals. So you've got this nice on-demand library of things that you can do to help you get unstuck and on the way at the time that is right for you, right? It's kind of completely self-directed and you have that option. So you've got win courses and the on-demand workshops. Now, in fact, there's definitely over 20 courses back there. Now there's over 200 some odd workshops that are back there as well. So that's kind of a lot of the content stuff. Then you've got resources. So the resources is the toolbox. So we have these. This section is also free, by the way, for the toolbox members, if you so chose. But this Get It Done guide section, this is new, and this is for the Academy members. So we have like little, almost like craft kits. Like once you know how to use a hammer and some nails, let's build a table. And so this stuff is created to show you how to like build a certain style report. It comes with templates and videos, and it doesn't teach you Tag Manager, doesn't teach you analytics, because the Win courses are teaching you those, right? Are what you need courses are teaching you those, but the how to assemble all these pieces together into something that's kind of a cool thing that you can use to guide your own marketing. That's the Eyes on the Journey report. We're kind of famous for that now, so we created that. So you have more of those, and as those are created, you'll have access to those as an Academy member. So there's the Win courses, the on-demand workshops, and the toolbox. Then it's about support, right? Where do you go to get help? The first thing I'll show you is the Winner Circle. This is just the members-only community that's back here. So you can pop through here, pop in whatever your question is, or going through there, and post stuff. So you have access to all of that coming through here. So lots of cool things you can do. Winner Circle. The difference between, or the reason I like this one, I should say, is because it's other people like you. It's measurement marketers that are back there learning measurement marketing, but everyone's got special skills. So somebody might be better at Facebook conversions API stuff because they're doing more codey technical stuff. Other people are better at technical SEO. Other people are maybe Google Ads experts, and people ask for help from each other on various things that are definitely outside of our own sort of specialties. Our specialty at the Measurement Marketing Academy is all about measurement, right? So if we don't know technical SEO, but our members do. And so that's where the Winner Circle is really cool, to meet new people and build a network and sort of hang out and see what people do. And then there's the Ask an Instructor support. That is the final level of support. It looks like this. When you come in, you just click on Ask a Question, you pop in whatever your question is, whatever your details of the question are. Love screenshots and videos. If you could send those over, that's even better. And then you have a nice little question that you've got that instructors will come in and they'll answer as they're coming through. So you can grab the, your question, whatever the details are. You'll see a little thread that comes through. The instructor answers it, opens it up, closes it, whatever. But you have kind of got permanent access to it. It's like a permanent record of answers, and it really is well beyond I lost my password kind of support. Ask an Instructor support is all about a kind of like having a consultant on call in a lot of ways, right? That's what it's about. It's about having a consultant on call. Not quite real-time support for sure. Answers typically within 24 business hours. But our goal is that, a video, if you send us a video or a screenshot of your setup or whatever your question is, whether it's strategy or implementation, it doesn't matter. Anything measurement related, we're happy to help with. But then our instructors will send back videos and screenshots to you a lot of the times as well, saying, oh, here, check this one little box. And that is just so huge to have that sort of level of support. And then of course you can just do the manage account. This is upgrades, downgrades, that sort of stuff that are back there. So that is the Academy in a nutshell. In terms of the value that's back there, again, you've got courses, you've got the Ask Instructor support, the on-demand workshop library, the Winner Circle community, the courses themselves, all updates and all new courses that are created. You get access to everything. There's not like we reserve a set of courses for somebody else. You get access to every course we ever create or will create. It's back there. So you have access to all of those. It's at least a $3,500 value, $3,490, I guess, technically. But because when we used to sell these, I used to sell them at a piece. And so you've got access to at least $3,500 in value just with that. The Ask Instructor support, it could easily sell that for $500 to have that sort of thing on play. The on-demand workshop library, $4,000 at least, because we used to sell those for $20 a pop way back when you first got started. Now there's over 200 of them. So you've got all of those. And then the Winner Circle community, right? Call that $100 a month easy to be a part of a community like that of people who understand measurement, understand what you're trying to ask, but have special skills in areas where you really need them. It's a really cool value. Total of about $8,500 in training and support that you've got access to every single month that you're a Measurement Marketing Academy member. So think about that. So over $8,500 in training support you have access to on demand whenever you want it. So to learn more about the Measurement Marketing Academy, just go to measure.tips/getacademy. We have monthly and annual options available. I obviously encourage the annual option. Clearly I'm biased, I know. But measurement is a journey. And so most members find that they do it for a month or two and end up upgrading to the annual anyway. So if the budget allows, I would just shortcut that, recommend the annual to take a look at it. But of course, you could always do the monthlies if you want to try it out anyway. We're happy to have you either way and definitely invite you if the time is right to become a member of the Measurement Marketing Academy. With that, we'll go ahead and officially bring this workshop to a close. This has been Strategy Session, how to guarantee you are using the right tool at the right time. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we'll see you on the next one.